Hi everybody, it's science from my backyard. We're going to start by checking on the plants that we've already planted and see what's doing. Here are the tomato seeds that I planted. They haven't really changed that much. I don't feel like they've grown a lot since the last time, but they're definitely still doing well. Here's the potato plant that we planted, and it looks like the stems are getting longer. These stems that are coming out of the ground, looks like they're getting longer. The radish just keeps getting taller. There's the radish. That got planted last week. And the cuttings that we made of Poe, I haven't seen roots, but I'm going to double check. There might be one. I don't know if you can see it. That little tiny thing coming out. See that one? That one little root? That's not enough though. We need more roots before we plant it in soil. Poe Jr. has to have a lot of roots before we can plant it in soil, or it won't live. It needs the roots to be able to suck up the nutrients from the soil. These are the plants that we've already planted that we're just checking in on. Lastly, here is our grass. Here's a side view of the cut side and the uncut side. Let's do our measuring. Last week, the tallest piece of grass was 5 inches, and the one we cut was 3/4 of an inch. Let's see where we are today. Stuff that we cut is about 1 inch now. And the tallest piece of grass is, almost 6 inches. So it went from 4 to 5 to almost 6 inches. It went about, the long side of the grass went about 1 inch a week. The short side that we cut, 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch to 1 inch, it grew 1/4 of an inch since last week. So let's record that. We had 6 inches was the tall side, and the short side was about 1 inch. So that's where our grass is. I noticed last Monday was where we said we planted the potatoes. The Friday before, I put lettuce and celery in water. So that was one and a half weeks ago. So let's check on our lettuce and celery. The lettuce does not seem to have grown any roots at all. Nothing really seemed to happen to the top either. So let's look at our celery. Can you see we have one little thing growing out there, and we have one little thing growing out there. So I just recorded on our calendar celery, 2 growths. We'll see what they turn into. For today's lesson, I'll ask the question, what is a garden? Have you seen a garden recently? Think about what you saw. What kinds of plants have you seen in a garden? Have you seen plants with flowers, or vegetables, or trees, or bushes in a garden? All of those things are true. A garden can be a vegetable garden, or a flower garden, or just a garden with bushes and plants. Today we are going to set up something called a terrarium. Say that with me. Terrarium. And that is a small garden of plants. We're going to think about what we've used the past few weeks that can go into our terrarium. We will be adding some soil to help the terrarium grow. We'll be planting some seeds. We'll be adding some plants that we already have. And later we'll be adding some small animals that we find outside. The focus question for today is, what do plants need to live and grow in a terrarium? So think about the things that plants need to live and grow. Do we remember those things? Water, light, air, soil, and space, that's what plants need to grow. Here are some things we're going to put in our terrarium. I'm going to plant some more of this grass seed this is the same grass seed that we planted this grass with, and the grass that was in our potatoes. So that is one of the things. I think I'm going to put our tomato plant into the terrarium as well. So we'll have some grass and we'll have some tomato plants. The little cuttings from Poe aren't ready to go in because the roots aren't ready. And this radish is growing too tall for our terrarium. So these are some nice short little plants that we can put in our terrarium. So that is what we're going to put in our terrarium. I happen to have a terrarium ready to go. This is a terrarium that I set up back in November. I'll show you from the top. That little brown thing that I'm focusing in on a little right here, that was a woolly bear caterpillar. And Allie found it back in November, and we cared for the woolly bear caterpillar and fed him spinach every day and sprayed him with water, and he climbed on this little twig which was alive at one point. We had grass seed planted. It was a pretty cool terrarium. And Wooly the caterpillar seemed to like it. Wooly the caterpillar made a cocoon. Wooly is supposed to turn into a tiger moth. Wooly made a cocoon in about January and has been sitting like that ever since. We have no idea if Wooly is alive or not, but we're going to leave Wooly in our terrarium. First thing we're going to do, I'm going to put more soil in the terrarium because it's been a while and it's kind of dried up. I do spray Wooly once a day still, but it is sort of dry. So I will first start by putting more moist soil in. I'll spray it and wet it down and put some moist soil in. I put some more soil in, but I did not put it near Wooly. Wooly is staying right where he or she is. Next, I'll put the tomato plants in. Now they are planted in our terrarium. They're about in the middle. Wooly's on the left. They're toward the middle of the terrarium. Now I'll plant the grass seed. I put the grass seed on the right side of the terrarium. So the grass seed is on the right, all the way from the top to the bottom, all the way to about the middle of the terrarium. And the tomato plants are in the back, and I just have the grass seed in the front. And Wooly is still over on the left side. I'm going to leave Wooly alone. I'm going to now use a water sprayer to spray the whole terrarium because we want to keep it nice and moist. How do you think we can keep track of changes that might happen in our terrarium? Do you remember that we've been studying maps a little bit lately? We can make a map of our terrarium. Let me show you. Let me show you what I did. I drew the terrarium in the shape that the terrarium is. And I drew Wooly over on the top left. I drew the tomato plants pretty much where I planted them. And then I drew a whole big space where I planted the grass seed. Now you can see in the real terrarium, Wooly is over on the top left. The tomato plants are where I planted them, and the grass seed is all across there. We will see what happens over time with our terrarium. Another way to make a terrarium map is to use a map key. On this map key, W equals Wooly, G equals grass seed, T equals tomato plants. And then when we look at our terrarium map, the W is there, that was for Wooly. All these T's over here, that's where I planted the tomato seed, and all the G's. You could see the map looking like that as well. Either way, you would be able to see what our real terrarium looks like and to identify all the parts. Our terrarium is a place where plants and small animals can live. Another name for a place where living things live is habitat. Say it with me. Habitat. A habitat provides all the things that plants or animals need. We're going to decide where this terrarium should stay, where the sun isn't hitting the terrarium totally. It might heat things up too much. I will continue to spray it every day with my mister. I mist it just a little bit, just to keep it moist. Let's talk about some of our vocabulary. Today we made a mini garden in a closed container, or it will be closed when I put the top on, called a terrarium. A drawing with labels showing the location of things in our terrarium is called a map. A list of symbols used on the map was called a map key. A place where living plants or animals get their food, water, air, sunlight, and space is called a habitat. Now let's answer the focus question. What do plants need to live and grow in a terrarium? What's one thing? Did you think of one? I'll tell you what the things are. You tell me if your idea was on it. Food, which they'll get from the soil. Air, water, light, and space. Did you answer it? Excellent. The next time we visit our terrarium, we're going to add some small animals that I find outside. So we'll start by reading, what do animals need? Animals live in different habitats. Some animals live in water. Others live on land. Some animals live on other animals. But all animals have the same basic needs. Animals need food. They eat plants and animals. Animals that eat plants are herbivores. Animals that eat other animals are carnivores. Animals need water. Most land animals drink fresh water. Some animals get water only from their food. Land animals need air. Air contains oxygen that animals need to live. Animals need shelter. Shelter protects animals from weather and other animals. Burrows and nests are safe places for young animals. A terrarium is a small habitat made in a container. Worms, snails, insects, and plants can live together in a habitat. I hope you've enjoyed Science from My Backyard. Until next time, have a wonderful day.